Hi guys, and welcome back to another video for PSO2 New Genesis. So today's video I want to cover a few things that SEGA have added recently. So the first thing I want to cover is there is currently a campaign running to help people get geared up. So as you might know, one of the best bits of gear that you can use at the moment is the Akroselio gear. There is another series that's been added just recently, the Legendary series, but they are incredibly rare to get. So the reality is that you're probably going to be aiming towards Akroselio for the time being until you find one of those. To help with that, SEGA have actually added a new campaign to the game to make it a lot easier to get the items for it. So if you don't know what the Akroselio is, you get them through the item trader here. And it's in this equipment upgrade augment transfer. And you can see we've got all the Akroselio weapons here, and there is also the Akrotasis armours as well. And to get these, you basically need to follow these upgrade paths, which generally go from, if we take the weapons for an example, generally the way you'll exchange for these is you'll start with an Excelio weapon, upgrade that to a Duocelio, then upgrade that to a Tricelio, and then upgrade that to an Akroselio, and there's different materials to upgrade it. What this campaign does is it allows you to get the materials, but also just gives you some of the gear as well for free. Well, almost free. So to access this campaign, what you need to do is go to your main menu, go to shop, and go to the treasure shop, and it's the Enmazeta treasure shop that you want to go to. So once you go to this Enmazeta treasure shop, you can see here, more or less straight away, you can see these campaign items. Now what this does is it will give you a few different options for Tricelio weapons, and these are basically allowing you to skip the Duocelio and Tricelio upgrade stages. So they're just giving you a Tricelio weapon, so then all you have to do is then upgrade this to an Akroselio. Now, there are some downsides with this. They do come with a level 3 fixer, but the fixer is randomised. It seems to be set ones as well from what I can tell. So you can see, for example, this Harmonizer has fixer Fatali 3. You can also see these boots have fixer Blaster 3. I don't know if you can get all the fixers from this. It seems to be certain ones that seem to be favoured from what I can tell. The other downside is that they don't have any augments to begin with, and they also are not limit broken or don't have any potentials or anything, so you will have to put a bit of work in to make these usable. But basically this just allows you to skip the first upgrade stages, more or less. So I suppose what this is doing in the long term is it's allowing you to save some of the materials for the final upgrade piece. And you can see these are incredibly cheap to get as well. They only cost 30,000 Mazetta. Now, there is a limit on these. You can only buy one of each. However, if you know how the treasure shop works, you can refresh the treasure shop, and that will refresh the items that are available. Before we do that, though, there is also a Akrotasis armour. Now, there'll be one of these in each shop variant. Now, from what I can tell, it looks like you can get any version of Akrotasis. So you can get the regular Akrotasis armour, you can get the Vida version, and I think you might be able to get the VO version. I don't think I've seen it yet, but I've definitely seen Vida and the regular version. Again, these come with a level 3 fixer. Again, they have no augments, and again, they are not limit broken. But they are a budget way of getting into Tricelio, basically. So I will definitely buy that, because the more Tricelio armors I have, the better. I will also buy the Gunblade as well for my Slayer. The rest I don't really care about. Before you refresh it though, there is also cut price Mars updaters, so if you do need to upgrade your Mars, this is a really cheap way of doing that. This, I mean, you can get up to 5 per shop refresh. Honestly, I feel that you get Mars updaters quite commonly anyway, so I don't see as much of a need for this, but if you are really behind on your Mars upgrades, this could be a way of getting your Mars upgraded. And you can see, we do also have some crafting materials for the Tricelio, well, Duocelio, Tricelio, Akroselio, and the armors as well. So in this one, we've got some extra Vans 2s, and we can get up to 30 of them, so let's get those. There is also, for some reason, some ores that show up as part of the event. I don't know why they're there specifically. And obviously, if you scroll down, there is always one of these in the shop regularly anywhere. So we may as well grab these extra Vans 3s while we're here as well. So we'll buy those. Then what we can do is we can refresh the shop, and you get one refresh for free every day. And you see, that upgrades it for us. So now we have blades, double saber, launcher, and harmonizer, and a regular Akrotasis armor. So again, we'll buy that. We now have Evolavolt 2s instead of Ectovance 2s, so we'll buy those. And we also have Ectovance 1s here as well, so we'll get those. And you can basically just refresh this a couple of times. Now, you get one refresh for free. If you have premium, you can refresh it again, so I will do that. What I'm after is a Akroselio rod, and the game just will not give me one. The downside of this is that the weapons it offers you are randomized, so I have gone for several days without seeing a single Akroselio rod, but I have seen the machine guns over and over again. So again, we'll just pick up all the materials that we need. So once you've done your premium refresh, the next refreshers cost star gems. However, honestly, at the minute I would do these because they only cost 10 star gems, which is nothing. And you get basically 3 more refreshers. So we'll refresh again. So this time we've got the boots, katana, launcher, and wand. So see, very, very quickly, this is a really good way of just stocking up on materials that you need for the Akroselios. So again, we'll refresh again. Still no rod, huh? Okay, so we can get the VO armor, so that confirms that, so that can appear. The really good thing as well is these armors can appear, like this one, with Fixer Auxis, which is a fantastic fixer for armors. We'll also get the Ectovance 3s. And some more Ectovance 1s. So it's an extremely good way of stocking up on these materials. Now I think we have one more refresh. And no, we've looked out again, so still no rod. So my force remains unused. So again, we'll get this gear. Did we get everything there? Yes, we did. So what you can see just from those refreshers, we got obviously a few Akroselio weapons, we got quite a few bits of Akrotasis armor. But for me, the most important one is actually the materials. So from that, we got 70 Ectovance 1s, 50 Evolavolt 2s, 90 Ectovance 2s, 10 Evolavolt 3s, 30 Ectovance 3s. You know, that is fantastic amount of materials for making your Akroselios. So even if you already have some really good Akroselio weapons or Akrotasis armors, this is still a really, really good way of getting some of the materials to upgrade them further to the Akroselio. So definitely make sure that you're checking this every day. It does refresh every single day. Again, it's just in the Mazetta treasure shop. And every day you'll be able to do those multiple refreshers as well. Again, depending on if you have premium and depending if you want to use star gems. For me, I would definitely recommend using the star gem refreshers at the moment, just because 10 star gems is literally nothing. You can earn that really, really easily just in-game. And it's just a really good way of skipping some of the upgrades. Another reason you might want to get these weapons in particular is if you've already got really good weapons, these could be a way of getting some fodder to upgrade your fixes on your current weapons. Because they only cost 30,000 Mazetta each, so they are potentially a really good way of just farming to try and increase fixes on your current weapon. Or alternatively, you can do what I'm doing, which is to try and gear up some of my alt characters and try and skip some of the upgrade costs. Again, just to reiterate though, there will be some costs involved with making these usable, because with them having no fixes and they're not limit broken, and they've also got no potential on them, so you are going to spend a bit there. However, SEGA also have your back on that as well. So what they're also doing is in the item lab, we currently have campaigns on. So we have an item enhancement campaign. So this gives you great success rate plus 100%. So you're guaranteed great success when you grind. And the amount of Mazetta needed to upgrade is 90% lower. And this applies, as far as I'm aware, this applies to Excelio, Duocelio, Tricelio, and Akroselio. So they're really wanting you to funnel your funds into getting those weapons. Really, after this campaign, there is kind of no excuse for using free gear, free handout gear. You really should be in Akroselio by the end of this campaign. The campaign for the treasure shop runs, I believe, until about June. So you've got plenty of time to get the gear you want. And realistically, by then, you really should be in this gear. There is kind of no excuse for using the free handouts at that point. So that is for the item enhancement. For the limit breaking, the required materials are reduced by 90% and the required Mazetta is reduced by 90%. And then for unlocking the potentials, the required materials are reduced by 90% and the required Mazetta is reduced by 90%. So although you do need to put a lot of work into upgrading these bits of gear, the cost is almost completely taken out of it. The only real downside, I suppose, is that you still need to add augments. There's no kind of reductions on any captures or anything, or any increased success rates for augmentation. So that is the only downside. However, honestly, with the amount of stuff they're giving you here, the money that you're saving from the enhancement, the limit breaking, and the potentials, you can probably use for the augments anywhere. So it's a really, really good campaign. So if you're not using Tricelio or Akroselio, this is your big chance to get into that series. It is a really, really good weapon series, particularly the Akroselio, and is probably the best you're going to be able to use unless you get lucky enough to get a 12 or a Legendia. And from what I've seen, the Legendia weapons are incredibly rare. Let's actually see if any are on sale. Yeah, so just to reiterate about the Legendios weapons, you really want to go for the Akroselio at the minute because the Legendios are almost impossible to get. They are incredibly rare. I've managed to find this one Legendios bow. Also, if I keep calling them Legendia, just ignore me. It's Legendios. So I've managed to find this one Legendios bow in someone's player shop, which is 500 million. So you can see that they're not going to be particularly easy to get. Kind of think of these as, if anyone remembers when the relic weapons first released, or when, I suppose even when things like the Flugel Guard weapons first released, or the Wing Guards when they first released, they were very, very hard to get. And the Legendios seems to be the continuation of that. So I think for the time being, if you probably want to focus on those Akroselio, at least they are very, very obtainable now. They are much easier to get. Also, bear in mind as well that you do still have other methods of farming the materials for them. So you do still have things like Dark Vault's Vial, which will give you a Vault 3s. You have the Leciel upgrade as well, which also gives you the materials. So speaking of Leciel, let's check out the new changes to Leciel as well. So another thing that's happened is we now have an update to the Leciel quest. So we have another variant of Leciel now, which is called Leciel Combat Analysis Zone Survey. So this is Leciel, but it works a little bit differently. Now, my understanding of this is I believe that this version has currently replaced the original Leciel exploration. But I believe that the plan is after a set amount of time, they're going to make it so that the Leciel basically alternates between the old version and the new version. So the old version obviously is the one where you run around the rooms, solve puzzles, generally fight a Gigantic or a Gurava, and then you do a boss at the end. This one works a bit differently. So the way this one works is you basically select buffs for your character per room. It's not like you're going to different rooms in Leciel and unlocking buffs for everyone. You will get individualized buffs in this quest, and you can choose how they're distributed, and at the end you'll fight a boss as normal. There's also some other little additions they've made to this that make it a little bit more interesting. So let's jump it in. Yeah, so this is the new Leciel, and at first glance it will look very, very similar. What you'll notice is at the top left we've got this player ability buff section, and this will increase as we go through the quest. We'll also collect points as we go through, and we can use these points to actually buy some abilities as well, or stock up on rest signs. So you can see here we've got 3 abilities to choose from. So first one, I'm going to go with just max HP, and that gives me several hundred more HP. So you can see we go into the room and we get an objective to clear in this room, which is just defeat all the enemies. There is also side missions in this as well. So you can see in this one it says try and take damage less than 50 times. Now what's happening here is we've got what's called an invading enemy. So a new enemy has appeared, which is this guy here. There was a equalized enemy, so he obviously buffs all the enemies around him. We basically need to destroy this enemy to get like a little extra boost. And this is a random event as well, so this won't always happen. So you can see, so by defeating him, we then weaken some of the other enemies. And we get some extra points, basically, for clearing that extra quest. Apologies if I'm rusty, I have not played my bouncer for ages. So at the end of each room, we get to choose another buff. So I'm now going to go with down factor to enemies up. So you can see here, we've got a capsule. I could spend 3,000 points to give me 2 rest assigns and 1 reverse assign. At the minute, I don't feel like I need to. What you might notice is, at the bottom of the screen, I only have 5 rest assign at the minute. And 1 reverse assign. That's because this quest actually limits you. So you can unlock more as the quest goes on, if you want to. So again, we've got another equalized enemy. They do appear at random. I know we've had one in every room so far, but they are randomized. Sometimes you will get runs that don't have any. Sometimes you'll seem to get them every single room. So although it works somewhat similar to the original Leciel, it's kind of weird. It almost feels a little bit like a roguelike. That's not to say it's difficult, because it really isn't. The only difficulty so far is there is a chance to get certain bosses that show up, and one of the ones that can show up is Ruin Masquerade, which is obviously much harder than any other boss in the game. That does seem to be quite a rare occurrence though, from what I've seen. And I don't know if that's a random chance or if it's only on certain patterns on the map. Because another thing about this quest is... Let's go with that actually. So for that one, we spent some points to get that ability because it's a better ability. So yeah, one thing about this quest is that the map does rotate every day, a bit like the original Leciel. You probably know that if you played the original version of Leciel, that every day the boss would change and the buffs that you could get would change. In this one, the actual map layout can change as well. Unfortunately, this one seems to be on a lot. I seem to get this pattern all the time. I know it can change, though. I have seen other patterns. I just seem to get this one a lot. So this trial here, you'll always usually get this one. You basically get the boss from the end of the quest shop, and it's pretty much impossible to kill him in this trial. The whole point of this is to do as much damage as you can to it, and some of the damage will actually carry over to the end. So here, I'm just going to go with damage resistance, because I know that Hunar does hurt quite a bit. I'm also going to spend some points to get some rest assigns. So it's quite an interesting take on the quest. I have kind of mixed opinions of it for the most part. I think one issue I have with it is that when I was trying to get a good indication of whether I liked it or not, I kept getting the same map a lot. Again, it does seem to rotate. I think the problem was when it first launched, there was actually a bug with the quest where you got the same map all the time. And that has now been solved, but then I've logged on today and I've got the same map again. Having said that, I think the time I'm recording this, I think, is just before the reset, so it should hopefully change soon. We'll take some crit rate up. So from what I can tell at the minute, the trials that you get seem to be the same for each variant, so yeah, don't do that. That's a lot of points, but that basically gives us every single buff. So yeah, from what I've seen, it seems like for this layout, I seem to get the same bosses pretty much every time. The boss that we got earlier on, which in this case was Hunar, that one differs, because that is the end boss that you fight. But for example, in this room, this Valvalan in the middle seems to always be a Valvalan. We've got another equalized enemy. It is kind of amazing from what I've noticed in this, how many people just ignore the equalize enemies. So with that, we get to the end, and we'll spend some points just to stock up our rest signs again.
Success.
And as you'd probably expect, it ends with a boss fight.
Trial start.
So you can see we're fighting Hunal, and you can see he starts on half health, and that is because of the damage we did to him earlier. So the more damage you do earlier on, the less you have to do in this stage. I will say that the bosses can hit really hard in this final bit. I mean, this guy has 250% potency. So you see, we had a pretty good team there overall, so overall, I think I do reasonably like the Leciel changes. I just seem to be really unlucky with the maps. I seem to get the same one quite often. But it's a nice change from the original way that Leciel worked. However, I will say that I will be glad to see the original Leciel come back as well and it alternate between the two. So as for rewards, you can get these items called the Clearodin weapons. These are 12-star weapons. They are basically the upgrade to the Eridin weapons. The main benefit of these is that they have these new EX abilities, which are EX2 abilities, which are upgraded versions of the originals. One thing I do just want to say quickly on this is be very careful if you're buying these Clearodin weapons from player shops, because some people are actually changing the affixes on them to the old Eridin affixes and trying to sell them. Basically what people are doing is that they know what the combination of affixes that people like are, and they're putting the desired affixes on the weapon, but making it the original affixes from the Eridin weapons rather than the upgraded 2 versions, and then trying to sell them for loads of money. So be very, very careful when you're buying these Clearodin weapons from player shops. Just make sure that the EX abilities have the 2 in the name. Otherwise you're getting ripped off. I think SEGA have mentioned that they're looking into that. I'm guessing that what they might do is maybe make it impossible to add EX1 abilities to them, which I think is a good thing to do, honestly. So just be very careful of that. But yeah, you're basically going to check these for any kind of synergies, like you would with the Eridin weapons. So we also get a few LC capsules. We get the usual stuff for Akroselio, so Evolve Vault 3s, Evolve Vault 2s, Evolve Vault 1s, Ectovance 3, 2, 1s, Progro Grinders. So that is the main benefit of doing it, I suppose, for the Akroselio stuff. There is also a small, and I mean tiny, chance of getting the Legendios weapons from this. This is the only way of getting them at the moment, as far as I'm aware. So that is why a lot of people are running it, just to try and get a Legendios. But it is incredibly rare. So that is a brief look at the current campaigns that are running. I think it is definitely worth jumping on NGS if you do want to get your gear upgraded. If you've got any alts or anything that you've been struggling to get upgrades for. Because let's face it, upgrading everyone to Akroselio if you've got multiple characters is a bit of a task to do. This campaign basically makes it a lot easier to do that. So just as a reminder, again, it's just in the treasure shop and just in here. So I would just stock up on any Triceliors for any classes that you're using. Any armours for any classes that you want to upgrade to Akrotasis armour. And make sure you grab the materials as well that are relevant to the upgrade tree. So with that, I'll end that video there. If you do have any questions about this campaign or about Leciel, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I will try and answer what I can. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing, or joining as a member. I do typically 1 video a week now, and I do a couple of streams a week as well on YouTube and on Twitch. I also have an X and a Bluesky, which are both SectionSkyly, and I have a Discord server you can join as well, so feel free to join us over there. But for the meantime, see you guys in the next one.